So I need some help. The next retrospective I'm planning to do for Zanan Canada is on the anime that aired on Radio-Canada in the 80s and early 90s. I'm talking about World Masterpiece Theater, Albator, Goldorak, all those titles. What I need is someone who can come on the show and talk with me about it. I'm looking for someone who, ideally, can speak decent English, actually watched this stuff when it aired on Radio-Canada originally, and is able to talk at length about the cultural importance of these titles. If this describes you, or someone you know, please drop me a line either in the contact form at zanan.ca or through email at zanancanada@gmail.com. With that out of the way, please enjoy the show. Hey everyone, welcome to Zanan Canada. I'm your host, Jesse Betteridge. Today on the show, I'm joined by Cameron Archer. He's the webmaster of Gloryosky.
Hello.
Hey Cameron. So, could you take a quick second and just kind of, introduce Gloryosky, what the site's all about, or kind of the story behind it?
It's a Canadian television and media website. It's been around since around 2004, but it's been a television website since 2008. Been covering Canadian television. I've written for places also such as TVA and a Canadian screenwriter.
So you're a Canadian media pundit, essentially.
Oh, I pretend to be. I think.
But you follow...
I think we all pretend to be.
Well, I know you follow, in particular, you follow a lot of the sci-fi stuff on Canadian TV, including animation.
Well, a lot of the sci-fi stuff and animation.
You generally focus a lot on chorus because a lot of that stuff does fall under them, and that's something that we're talking about quite a bit this episode. First, I kind of wanted to just touch on something else. So this year I went again to Anime Revolution. That's the anime convention here in Vancouver. Cameron, have you been to an anime convention at all in like the last 3 to 4 years?
I have not been to an anime event.
Or if anyone has been to an anime convention in the last 3 to 4 years, including Fan Expo, which we mustn't forget started as an anime convention long time ago. You may have noticed that there's been a lack of industry presence, at least in the Canadian conventions. This is something that's been happening in a lot of conventions across North America, but in particular, Canada has been very lacking in industry representation. In fact, in 2015, Anime North in Toronto was actually the second largest anime convention in North America, but it had no industry representation whatsoever. This year they fared a little better. They had Crunchyroll, they had Funimation, and Pony Canyon of all companies was there too. Pony Can USA, who I guess is trying to make more of a presence in Canada because they were at Anime Revolution in Vancouver as well. So, and which is good because Anime North in all likelihood is also probably the second largest anime convention in the past year as well. But the thing is that even in those cases, the presence is pretty small. They will the cons will generally send one rep up alone. They don't really bring anything more than a PowerPoint presentation. So it's a pretty minimal presence. They Crunchyroll won't bring their Crunchy Cast equipment or staff up here, which is unfortunate to not have that at the second largest convention in North America, I would say. But in Crunchyroll, after not being there for a year, was at Anime Revolution. And a couple of things happened. One, they actually had 2 panels. They had kind of a preview panel the first day, and then their actual Q&A panel the second day. The first day I talked to Victoria, who's the rep there, and I asked her if there was going to be any kind of word soon on the announcements of the dub cast for, Gintama and those other shows that they're dubbing and releasing on home video soon, because, word has basically broken out already that Gintama is being dubbed in Canada, even though it hasn't been officially announced yet. I know I mentioned on Twitter that she said that the announcement was going to be made at the Q&A panel the next day. Either she was told that she couldn't make that announcement, or I just completely misinterpreted what she said, because no announcement was actually made of that at the Q&A the next day, which was a very full panel, I have to say. And I noticed that there were some particular Vancouver-based voice actors who were sitting in the front row of that at that particular panel who looked a little disappointed at the lack of an announcement. So I don't know. I don't know what was going on there. They also didn't make any announcements of these Canadian casts at Otakon the next week either. So who knows what's up with that. I'm hoping that we hear some news on that soon. But there's just an observation that I made. I know when I went to Sakuracon earlier this year, I went to the Crunchyroll panel there, and if you've been to an industry panel at one of these conventions, you know that they're usually a complete waste of time. These companies will maybe pick one convention out of the entire circuit a year and make one big announcement at that. The rest of the time they're just showing promos and repeating the same announcements that you can get online, and basically just attaching a sort of energetic face to the company. At Sakuracon, they had a Q&A session for Crunchyroll, and nobody, they could not get anybody to come up and ask a question. Nobody was interested in actually engaging with them. They just wanted to hear all the announcements and leave, which is a stark contrast to what you would have found earlier or in the previous decade, when people would just line up and hound them with questions for as long as they could. Interestingly, Anime Revolution, I found, was quite a contrast. People were lining up and it was a huge line. So many people wanted to get that FaceTime with Victoria and ask her questions. I found people had really interesting questions too. It wasn't just have you licensed this title? It was really specific questions about, availability or the extent to which certain titles were available in Canada versus other countries, or sort of the mechanics about how all that works so that they could have an easier time finding content. There was one woman who even had a complaint about how they would run sort of graphic ads for some anime during other shows or in between other shows that had lighter content. I know she raised a concern that she had an autistic cousin or something that she was watching programs with, and it scared her. And I found little bits of feedback like that to be really interesting. But overall, it seemed people were really just so desperate to get that FaceTime and interaction in. And Victoria was at other panels at Anime Revolution as well, Women in Anime Industry and a couple more. And those panels were almost derailed by people asking industry questions to her. I just found it really interesting that that thirst is so present, at least in Vancouver. I don't know if it's the same at the conventions further east in the country. But I think that's really representative of definitely a lack of attention that the Canadian audience is getting through industry. I think there's a notion that people that they're not being engaged the same way that you'll find in U.S. cities. Maybe this is just two extreme examples that I happen to notice within a short frame of time, but I think it's just worth pointing out that kind of disparity is there. I don't know, Cameron, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, the problem with anime in Canada is, I'm not sure how big the industry is in America, but I've noticed that it has been becoming more the Japanese companies are coming to America. I mean, NIS is sorry,
sort of skipping over the middlemen and doing more direct distribution.
Yeah, there's Ponycan USA and Aniplex of America, which would be I believe Sony's thing.
Yeah, Aniplex is connected to Sony, although it's worth noting that the people who actually run Aniplex of America were the people who ran Geneon back in the 90s that distributed stuff like Trigun, which was already kind of a high-end label back then, and now they've just sort of elevated that, and have been kind of successful in doing so as well. They understand the market. Actually, at the Ponycan USA panel I went to, at Anime Revolution, there was a really funny comment. Somebody asked them why they're not dubbing their content like, say, Aniplex does. And the rep mentioned that their first dub, which was for Yuki Yuna is a Hero, which I believe you can see on Netflix, they actually still have not made their money back from that investment. Which I find really funny because their products are ludicrously expensive. And yet they still have not been able to sort of make back that money. Which is a stark contrast to Aniplex, which has been producing many dubs. So Yeah, you have certain companies that are certainly better at that approach than others, but it's definitely marking a change.
Yeah, I mean there are still some people from the 1990s and 2000s still around.
Oh yeah.
Media Blasters is still around.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
they seem to like hone in on just the skeeviest titles that they could possibly grab, and then sit on them for like 2.5 years, and then like finally release them on burned DVD-Rs that won't play on
Yeah.
PS2s.
Yep. Well, Funimation's also a company. I mean, they've periodically had. I mean, they have a few Canadian titles too. Like in the live action, I believe they distribute the Dark Matter DVDs.
Yeah, and Lost.
And that show just got renewed for season 3 today.
How is that show?
Exactly.
I haven't checked it out yet.
I mean, it's well, I haven't seen much of the second season. I mean, it's I'm not sure you can compare it to. I think it's been compared to Firefly. Yeah, it's good for what it is. It's a summer show.
Okay, so
To be sure, but it's pretty good. And I'm just saying it's pretty good for what it is. And Killjoys and Dark Matter. It's
yeah, if you're not
they're kind of in the
if you're not familiar,
Yeah.
Dark Matter is created by the
Joseph Malavi.
who was the showrunner on Stargate SG-1, correct?
Right. Yeah. He's the Stargate.
Yeah.
One of the Stargate guys who yeah, in fact, they're both the Stargate guys, as I remember.
Yeah, but it's interesting that Funimation has their foot in that Canadian sci-fi live action kind of niche. And
yeah, but it's through Prodigy Pictures though. They also distributed, if I remember correctly, it was 13 The Conspiracy. So I'm not sure what's there. I think Prodigy has an output deal with Funimation.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I mean, the Canadian home video is pretty much the shows can be scattered throughout E1 and Acorn Media. VSD used to put out a lot of stuff. I haven't seen any TV titles from them in years.
Yeah, things are it's so messy, and Funimation is kind of unique because they don't distribute most of their titles through a ancillary Canadian company. So you're getting the US release direct here, which is very uncommon.
It's not as uncommon as you might think.
Well, at least we get it, unlike with Warner's distribution of Adult Swim titles. I still haven't been able to get my Rick and Morty Season 2 Blu-ray because Warner released the DVD of that in Canada, but not the Blu-ray. And Amazon.ca has been unable to secure any copies to send to people, even though they have it listed as an import on their site. I've been waiting since May. So, yeah, that blows.
Yeah, Amazon.ca really needs an overhaul.
Yeah, no kidding. They are only one part of that problem for sure, but yeah, they need an overhaul, especially since so many people depend on them. I mean, in so many parts of the country, they're like the lifeline for getting any kind of home video. Yeah, that stuff was an interesting way for Funimation to kind of diversify their catalog. And I think that they've scaled back on their Giant Ape stuff, but it's still, they still got their foot in there for sure.
Yeah, time will tell if they end up like ADV.
I think
because ADV had the Beastmaster Farscape one time. I forget what else they had, but
Funimation's decision to release that Shimoneta show with a sock, which has interesting connotations, of course. That totally just makes me think of an ADV move, like how they would pack panties inside their Najika DVD release. So one thing I also wanted to address here. Now I know that this podcast is focused on anime and Canadian media, and that's supposed to represent all forms of media and all the little intersections that take place there. There is a tendency for us to focus very extensively on television a lot of the time. You might wonder why that is, because there's this, permeating sense that television is dead, which I don't believe is the case. You could argue that the television industry in Canada is dead or dying. That does not mean that the medium of television is dead or antiquated in any way. But you may wonder why we focus so much on it. I mean, the truth is, it is just sort of a personal kind of fixation and obsession of mine, and I love talking about it. And the like absolute diehard fans of this show, the real kind of central audience, absolutely loves that stuff too. It is definitely a big part of the show for them. I don't know if that's the case for everybody, especially since I think I've been gathering a lot of new listeners recently. So I'm not sure if this is kind of alienating for people. This is actually this is something I'd love to hear feedback from members of the audience on. Remember, you can always email me, zonancanada@gmail.com, or tweet me at zonancanada. I would love to hear thoughts of viewers if they like the TV stuff on this show, or if I need to diversify a little more. Again, I know it works for some people. It may be very off-putting for others. Nonetheless, for this show in particular, this particular episode of the podcast, the rest we're mostly going to be talking about recent developments with TV stuff. And it is, again, mostly about Chorus, Adult Swim, Teletoon, which, even though they again still are not airing anime, just as was the case when we started this show, and was just as was the case 15 years ago. I think it is still very much important to keep them on the radar, because they're still some of the broadcasters where that stuff is most likely to show up. And also they have their foot in, the Adult Swim, adult skewing kind of content that very much overlaps with anime, and then that overlaps with the Canadian animation industry, which has, very, very related issues. So that's my reasoning for kind of keeping a spotlight on this stuff. That said, we now have the full fall schedules for both Teletoon at Night and Adult Swim, and there have been some very interesting developments on that front, wouldn't you say, Cameron?
Oh yeah.
So if you've been following this at all, you may remember that last fall, Adult Swim became available on.
Well, it was available in about 5 million homes. They shut down Teletoon Retro, and they gave some of the cable presence over to Disney Channel.
Yeah.
Which is said to have like 10 million subscribers, but honestly, I don't really see much of the evidence.
I wouldn't doubt that.
But I mean, they are on like.
I wouldn't doubt that a lot of people are watching Disney Channel, but I wouldn't be surprised if those numbers were padded for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And so Cartoon Network is supposed to have like 5 million, like a 5 million subscriber reach, whatever metric they use to justify that number.
And anyway, the big deal was, in all this mess, Adult Swim had now, their reach had massively increased. And so before that point, the Adult Swim, Adult Swim is a network in the US. I think it's pretty much safe to say it's just a block here in Canada. It had sort of been just kind of frozen. They weren't running anything from beyond 2008. And it was just sort of, it almost seemed to be in stasis. So with the expansion of reach, there was an expectation that they would be delivering new content. And they kind of hyped up the announcement, and lo and behold, they had no new Adult Swim originals, or not even Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty did come a few months later, but
they did have a lot of Fox ADHD originals.
They did, which I think they originally purchased for Teletoon at Night. But the thing is that in this effort to expand Adult Swim, the original plan very much seemed to be killing the Teletoon at Night brand over on Teletoon, because I guess it makes sense that you'd only need to run one block targeting viewers of adult animation. So between that time and then the next spring, they started kind of eroding the Teletoon at Night block, and it was scheduled to be taken off the air completely in March, but they had a last-minute change of heart and restored it as a 2-hour or a 3-hour block at the last minute. Now here, in fall 2016, Teletoon and Adult Swim have done a complete 180 reversal on their strategy within a 1-year period, which does not happen with very often in the world of television, to have a plan be usurped that quickly. Now, Teletoon at Night has actually expanded. They've gained back all those Fox shows, Futurama, Family Guy, American Dad. And I should also note that Family Guy and American Dad are now running every day, whereas they were on very limited contracts before. I believe Teletoon has a sharing agreement with FXX Canada on those ones. Am I right about that?
I'm not sure myself.
Yeah.
They do. I mean, I know they have an output. They have a deal with Fox to get some shows, distribute some of their shows on the air.
Yeah. It's some kind of wonky deal for sure, but those shows have more presence now. And meanwhile, Adult Swim has been reduced to a 3-hour block between 9 and 12 on Cartoon Network. From 12 onwards, they are actually now playing 90s nostalgia Cartoon Network shows. They got like Johnny Bravo, Ed, Ed and Eddie, Courage the Cowardly Dog, those titles running every night from 12 to like 3 or something, which I'm kind of on the fence about that. It'll probably bring in the audience they want. On the other hand, I am very much anti-nostalgia. I think that as a 90s kid, I think that 90s nostalgia may be one of the worst developments to ever happen in mass culture. But we'll see how that plays out. Perhaps more alarmingly than this big dramatic change is the fact that there are no new series at all between either of these two networks. Which,
I mean, they haven't announced anything yet, but
there's nothing in
there's
definitely nothing in September between these two. And if I'm not mistaken, this is almost unprecedented, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure myself, because usually Teletoon will debut one new show a year.
Yeah.
On average.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, last year, the shows that they did debut, they debuted Night Sweats, but that was basically like they were going to air Night Sweats on Byte, but Byte rebranded. The Byte was owned by Blue Ant Media. They were a comedy station. They rebranded to Makeful. So Night Sweats was going to air on Teletoon, but they kind of pushed that up to fall 2015 because Byte didn't exist anymore. It was basically a compilation of web cartoons based on the Byte on Mondo initiative.
Yeah, and it was supposed to air on Teletoon at night, and then it wound up getting sent over to Adult Swim Canada at the last minute because of a change, probably some kind of change in plan that wanted to put all the effort over to Adult Swim Canada and prop up that brand, despite the fact that they did not have the actual Adult Swim content to pop it up. But yeah.
Right.
So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts at all as to why they're pushing the strategy in this direction?
Like I know they have Adult Swim on mobile right now.
Yeah, the Adult Swim app.
The little SVOD offering, and that's going through straight from Turner to your device. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know why Chorus didn't kind of nail that down. I don't know what they're doing with Adult. I don't know why they have Adult Swim aside from if they're not going to air a lot of the shows.
Yeah, because you did confirm with them recently that they actually renewed their contract with Adult Swim too, along with the Cartoon Network.
I know they did renew the contract, but it was more of an adjunct to Nelvana and Cartoon Network having a merchandising deal. It was around July. And I haven't heard anything else about what they're going to do with Adult Swim with the block. The social media presence has been greatly scaled back. I mean, I'm not sure what they're going to do with Inspector Bronco. Maybe that's maybe they're going to do something with that come 2017.
I don't think that they'll even know what they're going to do with that until a week before it airs.
Or they put it on Teletoon at night. I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, it's weird. The whole Adult Swim app situation almost seems like, the result of some kind of fight that was going on where Chorus just kind of gave up. I don't know if that's happened, but it's worth noting that Cartoon Network stuff is still not streaming in Canada at all. It makes me wonder if Turner is trying to do something similar with that brand, but Chorus is actually taking them up on that fight.
Like last year, they were making a big push for the brand, and somehow around March, when they were giving a day and date with Archer Season 7, I guess Chorus decided that, Teletoon was their brand, or I should say, like one of many, because they pretty much have the kids market sewn up in Canada.
Well, they have half the television market sewn up in Canada now that they've merged with Shaw Media, and that's another thing that's probably complicated any strategy that they might have with adult animation as well.
But you have to wonder, like, what the main strategies are for kids and women.
Yeah.
That's always been. That's pretty much been Chorus's MO for many years, since the beginning. I mean, they've always wanted Teletoon. I mean, so they always wanted Teletoon. I mean, it was started around 1997. It was part of a consortium with Wick, I believe, and Astral, and I forget who else.
It was a real hodgepodge kind of deal.
And I kind of liked him when it was a hodgepodge.
Yeah, kind of. It was a more interesting situation. Although you could argue that now with Chorus and DHX as two separate entities, this is the first time that we're seeing real competition in the kids area, because before everyone was it was kind of a more of a stalemate of sort of weird halfway agreements.
The weird thing about DHX Media is that there are some shows that still air on Chorus channels, but I think there are agreements that were made before DHX Media bought Family Channel, which in itself was divested from what was once Astral.
One of the things that has come out of this merger is that Chorus has expanded their horizons beyond simply women, which is kind of a ridiculous designation for television and telling of how this stuff works a lot of the time, or how this idea of a general audience works. But they are they have now apparently moved Teletoon at Night and Adult Swim Canada, which were always kind of buried under the Chorus Kids designation, which pretty much guaranteed that they're going to be at the bottom of the totem pole in all cases. After their upfront, they released videos summarizing all the content and which part of the company it falls under. And Adult Swim and Teletoon at Night were now classified under the Chorus General Entertainment section, under just Chorus Television, which basically means the adult men faction of Chorus, which mostly includes the properties inherited from Shaw Media now. So obviously I don't know what's going on, but it seems that in addition to all this chaos going on, that they are being transferred over to this other division, and that's kind of contributing to all the chaos. But I will say that just if you look at this from a purely branding point of view, it kind of makes sense to put this emphasis on Teletoon at Night, because it is their brand, and it's a pretty well developed one, and it's one that is quite different from Adult Swim, I would argue, because Teletoon at Night's more of a laid back kind of brand, whereas Adult Swim Canada is more subversive, more unpredictable kind of feel. Even though I'm not sure if Chorus even really understands that with the way they've been approaching the brand lately. But Teletoon at Night has expanded to 8, and it's following Teletoon La Nuit's on the French version of Teletoon at Night's lead on that, which is actually now starting at 7:00. They're pushing it really early, which I can understand, because apparently that is the station for millennials in the Quebec market. Well, it is worth pointing out, and this this may be where the funding has been put this season, but Teletoon La Nuit, in addition to their expansion, is also premiering the Mike Ward show. If you're not familiar with Mike Ward, he's this basically giant asshole, or a comedian anyway, who is being sued by the Quebec's Human Rights Tribunal for making a joke about this kid named Jeremy Gabriel, who had a medical condition, a deformity of some kind, and he got to sing in front of the Pope because of it. And Mike Ward made this joke that 5 years later the kid hasn't died yet, because the kid was given that opportunity despite the fact that he doesn't have a life-threatening disease, just one, as Mike Ward commented, made him very ugly. And he feels that taxpayers should feel ripped off by that. That started a huge controversy surrounding free speech, and I guess not my place to make a moral decision on a moral judgment on what he did, even though I guess I kind of did by calling him an asshole. But the point is that after that controversy ignited, it seemed that Chorus Media, the French branch of Chorus, just couldn't give him a show fast enough, and they put him on the one station where I guess they figured he would fit best, which was Teletoon La Nuit. So that might explain where the money has all gone this season. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, they haven't really announced anything else for like either Teletoon at Night or Adult Swim, so I don't really tell. I mean, they were pretty late announcing anything for Adult Swim last year.
Yeah.
And Teletoon at Night, as is becoming really kind of typical nowadays.
They do have one show has new episodes airing. It is actually Aqua Teen Hunger Force. They're actually skipping straight to the season 8. What's one called?
Aqua Unit Patrol Squad 1, or?
They skipped seasons 5 through 7, which I guess is fine because those aired on G4 Tech TV years ago anyway. Maybe we'll finally at least be able to say that Aqua Teen Hunger Force aired in its entirety in Canada if they have gotten the rest.
Like if they've got any Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
It could just be a mistake. It could be.
And because they haven't really announced anything as of the time that this is being recorded.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's hard to say. It's just does a crapshoot aside from aside from the Mike Ward show and Teletoon La Nuit. It's all just kind of a way to see and approach, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, they haven't. Yeah, this is all going by TV list. So this is where we got all our information from. It's also worth pointing out that Teletoon apparently applied for a bunch of changes to their license as well, so that their current license has a lot of conditions trying to make the distinction between the kids' hours and the adult hours like crystal clear, and they're trying to erode that a little bit. Probably because they're finding that particular market is a little less saturated. Maybe they may be shifting Teletoon more towards a more typical broad audience station that just happens to air some children's content during the day, which is more what they've...
Yeah, a YTV with Lemon.
Yeah. Well, for their daytime schedule anyway. But I mean, Cameron, I know you're a fan of the Adult Swim brand. It seems they're not giving it up completely. I suspect that they're keeping it running solely so that they can have Rick and Morty premieres later on down the line, because as I understand it, Turner will not allow Rick and Morty to air anywhere unless it is attached to the Adult Swim brand, which is why they probably haven't moved that show to Teletoon at night. And I think the only exception internationally is Japan, where Rick and Morty is on Netflix. I'm curious to hear your thought as an Adult Swim fan. Do you think that this app that they've launched, do you think that is basically going to be like the sole substantial presence of Adult Swim here moving forward? Not that they ever had much before, but
well, I'm really not sure, because the Adult Swim brand has really kind of had a spotty history over the last few years. I mean, the shows were airing on G4 for a while, like from around 2009 to 2012. And then the reason I think they were moved off G4 was because they didn't really fit the terms of license at the time. Of course, because they are kind of phasing out the Category A, Category B, CRTC regulations.
That's the funny thing about Teletoon making those changes to their license, is that the fact that they still have to. Because once that Category A and B designation is gone, stations can basically do what they want. And do you know when that's going to happen? I was under the belief that it actually already had happened.
And they call it discretionary services now. I think everything gets finalized next year or but by 2017, 2018.
Right, yeah. So yeah, but at this point, G4 is a lame duck though. So
yeah, but G4 was a lame duck when it was airing the ADD block. It really was. That's all they really had aside from because I remember the programming that wasn't from Adult Swim. I think they were still airing Last Call with Leo Laporte, whatever that show was called. Like, the reruns of his little tech TV show.
I can't remember the name of the show, but I remember it.
It was Call for Help with Leo Laporte.
So yeah, if you're not familiar with what happened, G4 Tech TV had their adult digital distraction block where they picked up a bunch of Adult Swim shows around 2008 because Teletoon just, I guess, didn't want them anymore at that point. But then they ran that for a few years, and they ran through Aqua Teen Hunger Force up through season 7. They ran I think the first 3 seasons of Super Jail. They debuted season 4 of Venture Brothers. They covered a lot of the Adult Swim catalog in that time. But then they had
some of the live action shows too from Adult Swim. They had Eagle Heart, NTSF, SD, SUV, Children's Hospital. They aired. Now before that went to Much Music. Yep. Or Much,
yeah.
whatever they want to call it now.
But they had to stop airing it, but when they still had the rights to those programs, then Adult Swim Chorus got or Teletoon rather got the Adult Swim Canada license, but they weren't actually able to license any of that content because G4 Tech TV was sitting on it. And then I'm guessing that by the time it became available, they didn't see it as a worthwhile investment, which is probably the reason why we're not seeing it now. So it's been like a really frustrating situation if you feel that Adult Swim should have any kind of cultural space in Canada, which I think they should. I don't know if you think I'm not sure if you're happy with it just being a niche thing with those in the know, but I think it absolutely deserves to have cultural space. And have you tried the app? Have you used it?
No, I have not used the
Yeah,
app.
like it's good in that they have a decent selection. Although I have to point out that a lot of stuff is starting to disappear from it. It had all the episodes of Space Ghost Coast to Coast for a while. Now that they have actually gone in and pruned out all of the sort of problematic copyright episodes, which is only a handful of them, but they're still gone. I regret not watching them while I had the chance. And there are a couple of entire, like, half of season 2 and all of season 3 of the Eric Andre show is gone for some reason. And there's a few other things disappearing. So I guess they didn't have the blanket rights for a lot of that stuff that they thought they did. But it's still, the only way to watch a lot of this stuff in Canada. But man, it's like it's still a really wonky kind of app. They have Chromecast for if you have Google, but you can't actually multitask while using the Chromecast, which sucks. You have to run it through either your Google account or your Apple account. There's no way to watch it on a laptop, which is unfortunate because I'm pretty sure that viewing Adult Swim content on a laptop is how the vast majority of Adult Swim fans in Canada are used to watching that content at this point.
Yeah, do they have the Boondocks?
No, they don't.
Because I remember seeing that on Crackle. Because that's on Crackle.
That is Sony's territory.
Right.
I really wish that they'd have Adult Swim kind of up and functioning properly, because the app has good content, but it lacks character. You don't get the flow that you get with the American Adult Swim, which really is what makes it work. That's what makes that such a great station, is that the way it jumps between the programs and the cards and the advertisements. It has a very pleasant flow that's fun to watch, and Adult Swim Canada just is not able to function that way.
If they are filler, they let you know it's filler.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, we have the lack of Toonami, which I still say is the least of the problems going on here.
Yeah, they need you now.
Yeah. At this point, I think the only hope is that, maybe they will go for the new Samurai Jack, and then the Samurai Jack will carry that brand along with it. But, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I will admit when I saw that they weren't premiering anything on weekdays, I had my hopes up a little that that's what they invested in. But what they actually invested in was basically nothing. So I don't know what this says about the future of adult-oriented animation in Canada. Maybe they're just delaying announcements due to all the mess that's going on internally.
Maybe, or maybe they just don't know what they're doing. Like I can't really tell with the chorus at this point. I mean, because it's very messy on the kids' side too.
Yeah.
I mean, they did move quite a few of their shows like from YTV to Teletoon. I'm not sure where ABC Spark fits, but I think that might be lumped in with the quote-unquote women's category. I think
it's been transferred over there now, yeah. Because it was under Chorus Millennials before.
Yeah, whatever that was.
Chorus Millennials was just Chorus Kids. It was just under a different name. But yeah, that seems to be gone now. I was talking about the kids stuff. There's still major titles missing from Canada completely. Miraculous Ladybug is nowhere to be seen, either broadcast or streaming. And that's airing in most markets in the world right now.
Well, it is airing in French Canada.
Oh, yeah, it is on Tele-Quebec. You're right about that. Yeah.
Yes.
Very, very, very right about that. And I will also say that Adult Swim's new format, like the 3-hour format, I don't think I think I could get behind it. It's they have Samurai Jack, Metalocalypse, Robot Chicken every night, but in the middle they always have like kind of one show that they're showcasing. On Monday it's Rick and Morty, Tuesday it's Venture Brothers, Wednesday they have Adult Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Thursday they have The Awesomes, which I could kind of get behind that idea of everything being Adult Swim branded content being focused on specifically, which kind of makes sense from a branding perspective, but it's not. They have The Awesomes in there for some reison. And then Friday is Frisky Dingo. I could get behind that if they were using that format to showcase new content, but they're not. It's all just the same reruns again. I just don't even know what to say at this point.
It's not even just reruns. It's reruns from like 10 years ago.
I mean, it's neat that we get like the newer Aqua Teens on Saturday of all nights, but the rest is it continues to be a wasteland.
Well, there is supposed to be this show called The Pandas. They have
oh, right.
Bento Box Canada.
Yeah, the Bento Box deal. I think we're still waiting on those. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the only thing they've announced so far, the Pandas. That was last year.
Yeah,
And it hasn't debuted yet, which is what a press release is good for. If you wanted to announce it, you should have announced it maybe before Fan Expo.
It was one of 4 shows they were producing, if I'm not mistaken, but that's the only one that's been announced so far. They had a deal with Teletoon, and they set up a studio in Toronto where they're apparently working on these adult-oriented shows for Teletoon at night, but we just haven't heard anything about that. That's disappeared off the radar completely. On that note, I am curious, Cameron. Have you watched the Inspector Bronco pilot?
No,
Oh, you haven't? Yet. Oh, you should. It's pretty good. I like it. I think it's not bad.
Yeah, you have to wonder, like, Sugar Sammy is pretty funny.
You know what? I think that the original Inspector Bronco shorts that it's based off of were like live action. With like this guy in brown face being an Indian cop, and they're pretty bad, I would say. I think that Sugar Sammy's just presence, even though it's not his show, just having him in that lead role, I think has kind of straightened it out, and kind of I think he had a lot of say in what was done and what wasn't done, and I think that has made at least the pilot worthwhile. We'll see if it gets developed into a show, and if that show is any good. Yeah, I like it. I'm positive about it.
Yeah. But it is a version show. You must that must come into play because they've been airing a lot of. Well, they've aired 2 English language versions of French language shows. Of course, there was a Knuckleheads. And
Knuckleheads is off the schedule. It's gone.
Oh, is it off?
It is off the schedule.
Well, wait a year. It'll probably be on the schedule again. I don't know.
It's not probably gone. It is awful, and I'm glad to see it not being played to death like it was before.
Yeah, and there was also 2 Nuts and a Richard.
That is on the schedule. Yeah. So overall, I think that, if we're looking at the state of adult animation in Canada, the state of like just Adult Swim having any kind of relevant cultural space, those are both in pretty bad shape, or at the very least very, very up in the air. In a lot of places.
Well, they do need an overhaul. That is for sure.
Yeah, an overhaul is needed. Maybe that will happen like in the next year. Who knows? Maybe this is our fault for being stuck in that, all that mentality where all the big changes have to happen in September, which is a very antiquated way of doing things in television anyway. But yeah, the anime situation. I know last year I was really positive about the idea of anime showing up on Teletoon. I think there was reason for that because they were starting to shift in a superhero direction, and they went back on that. I have to say I'm a little less positive now. I'll never say never on that, perhaps foolishly. But yeah, I don't know. I think Family Charge did say in some of their correspondence that they're looking into more stuff like Iron Man towards the end of the year. So I think it's worth keeping an eye on.
Well, does that mean they're going to bring the rest of the Marvel anime?
It could mean anything. It could mean anything. It was a very vague PR kind of statement.
Yeah, Family Channel is very weird in what it brings up.
Yeah.
And I think they brought up Masters of Illusion.
Yeah, that's a weird choice for Family Charged.
Well, I guess whatever they feel needs to fill airtime. It seems to be.
Yeah, but I would still I think I can safely say now that like the anime situation is probably like the worst out of all these topics we focus on here, which is unfortunate because I still say that there's a lot of relevant cultural space that anime can take on Canadian TV, and I'd still like to see it happen. I think that anime will reach a wider audience at this point, probably if you put it on Netflix or Crunchyroll, sure, but if you put it on like a Teletoon or like a Family Charge or something, it will reach people who would otherwise not see it. We haven't even seen Attack on Titan air on TV yet, which is absurd. I mean, when you go into HMV, you see Doctor Who merchandise, you see Game of Thrones merchandise, and like right alongside it, perhaps even more prominently, depending on what city you're in, you see Attack on Titan, and it has that kind of merchandise space. It's like it has that spot reserved for it within the cultural kind of malaise that's present there, but it's not present on television or in that kind of centralized space that it's supposed to be in. It's like this big gap, and nobody wants to fill it for some reason. That still blows my mind that people would be resisting that. Or even Dragon Ball Z Kai. I feel like I'm just repeating myself. I keep saying this stuff over and over again. I don't know what else to do. It almost seems like CBC has a more likely chance of running anime at this point. Maybe that's what we should push
Well, I
for.
mean, I'd like to see CBC run anime. That would be, I mean, that would make some sense for late night fare at least.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I mean, even though they're not really appealing to like the 18 to 34 crowd, and it's CBC because they almost never do, but I mean, it would be good for a late night programming at least.
Yeah, like midnight or something. I think it could work. I don't know. Maybe. It's as good a risk as any they can take right now. I mean, did you see? Did you watch 4 in the morning?
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah, I've got it taped. I haven't watched it.
Yeah. You know what? I watched it earlier today. It's a lot of hype. It's another. At the end of the day, it is another CBC show. It's almost watchable, but yeah, just the white guy, the artsy guy with the ridiculous name that I can't remember. He just has this hammy, over the top kind of CBC idea of humor thrown in there that throws what could be an otherwise watchable show kind of off balance. And I was really disappointed by that element of it. That said, CBC is running good stuff though, like Baroness Von Sketch Show. I think is really funny, and I'm glad Romeo Section got renewed. I'm gonna check that out for sure. That I like the first season of that one, and I have time to watch this stuff now because I'm done grad school finally, and also got caught up on JoJo's finally the other night. That was pretty satisfying. Right. I don't know. Yeah, I still say there's a place for anime in all this. I think it's important for anime to have a place in all this, but. Yeah, I think we might have, like, the conversation kind of has to shift on this.
I mean, one of the things I'd like to see, I guess, with anime is, to just have some sort of place and not to have branding like they had with when Razor was around, where they called the block Kamikaze.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of their approach with that. To their credit, the people running the lineup on Razor, they at least understood what they were doing. They knew the material. I mean, they picked up Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo at the same time, and at the time, those two titles were held by different companies. So for them to know that that those two titles had a common director and a common audience and should be run together. I mean, if they knew that much, then that suggested that they had people who knew their stuff on the inside, and that kind of made it work. The branding, yeah, that was pretty bad.
Yeah, but and the sad thing is we haven't had a good anime block since then.
Yeah.
And that was around, I forget when they changed to MTV2. I think it was about 8 years ago. And how watchable has MTV2 been now?
It's not trying to be watchable. It is just there to soak up subscriber dollars. That's it. And I hope when Pick and Pay comes out, it kills it. It probably won't. They'll probably just keep it around until they have some other convenient brand to slap on it.
I'm not sure what the future of anime would be in Canada. I'm just not sure it's going to be. I'm not sure that television would be the right place for it.
Oh yeah, I mean it already is elsewhere. I mean there are problems with it.
Yeah, I mean you can watch Crunchyroll.
Yeah, I mean it is on Crunchyroll and
Tubi TV. They have I believe they announced the Viz Media announced that they were airing Sailor Moon.
They got Sailor Moon, and that's another thing. I think that maybe that kind of illustrates the importance here. When I say that Sailor Moon is streaming in Canada, that's huge. That's huge. That's really important. That's big. If someone were to announce that Sailor Moon was airing on television in Canada, that would be bigger news. People would make a much bigger deal out of that. That would be a real cause for celebration for people because it has that validation of being part of a more centralized cultural space in the end. That's still my perception.
Well, Canada did make Sailor Moon in North America.
It's true. Yep.
It's true. I mean, I know Deke Entertainment had the rights, and they were trying to make a big thing out of it in America, but it did catch on a little bit more in Canada.
Absolutely.
Not trying to brag and.
We all love to brag about that. We all love that. It's in Toronto. That's where all those that's where all those Sailor Moon stage plays happen. That's where Samantha Bee met Jason Jones by playing Sailor Moon in one of those things, which you could only find in Toronto. That was the scene. Have you heard that story?
No, I have not.
That's okay. So Samantha Bee, one of her earliest gigs was playing Sailor Moon in a stage show in Toronto back in like 1995, 1996. And during one of the shows when she was playing the part, Jason Jones was playing Tuxedo Mask. That's how they met and eventually got married and then wound up on The Daily Show and now are pursuing their own projects, including Samantha Bee's own show on TBS, which is hilarious. And this is not like half-truth that's floating around. Samantha Bee herself actually confirmed that verbatim in an interview at one time, unprovoked. Sadly, there are no pictures or videos of it around. If anybody has pictures or videos of that, please send them to me. I would love to see that. But that's the cultural apex right there. Well, Cameron, thanks a lot for coming on. Where can the folks at home find you?
The site's name is Gloryosky. The website is sweetposer.com. That was because it was an old company name of mine, or like yours as company. It was called Sweet Poser Entertainment. Just kind of an artifact I need to get rid of. Send money.
That's often how it goes. I mean, that's why this show is still called Zonan Canada, because I just kept renewing the domain name every year, even after my old website went away. So I just rolled with it. But people remember it, so it worked out. Hey, so just a couple things I forgot to mention in this episode. The English language version of the new Beyblade series, Beyblade Burst, will be having its world debut on Teletoon on Saturday, September 10th at 3 p.m. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it is something. The show was dubbed at Ocean Studios, and that may be of interest to some. Also of note, the Iron Man anime is actually still running regularly on Family Charge, and that suggests that it's actually not doing too badly. If you want to see them air more anime, be sure to keep spreading the word about that, and also send them your feedback to let them know that you want to see similar programs. With that said and done, I hope you enjoyed this episode. The theme song is by Ultra Klystron. You can find his stuff at ultraklystron.com. If you want to contact me, you can do so through the contact form at zonan.ca, through email, zonancanada@gmail.com, or by Twitter, @zonancanada. As always, if you know anyone who might like this show, please recommend it to them. See you again!